Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled you're here today because, well, we are setting out to discover exactly how to stop repeating the exact same workplace mistakes over and over again. Seriously, if you've ever felt like you're stuck in some professional version of Groundhog Day, you are absolutely in the right place.
It's a universal pain point, isn't it? Dealing with those recurring operational failures. You know the drill. You fix a problem on Monday, and by Friday, boom, it's back again, staring you right in the face. So why does this happen? Well, it's usually because organizations have this natural tendency to treat the surface-level symptoms instead of actually curing the disease. We basically slap a Band-Aid on a broken process and then act completely surprised when it falls right off.
But to actually cure that disease, we need the right diagnostic tool, and that is root cause analysis, or RCA for short. Now, according to the CMS framework, RCA isn't just another pointless meeting. It's a highly structured team process. It's designed to help us hunt down the underlying factors of an adverse event, or even a near miss, so we can develop corrections that actually stick. Think of it as your ultimate diagnostic tool.
So here is our roadmap for today. We'll be covering the root cause dilemma, the anatomy of the fishbone, building your diagram, the 5 whys technique, avoiding common RCA mistakes, and finally, we'll compare the fishbone to the Pareto chart.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, the root cause dilemma. The big dilemma here is that we often feel way too busy to analyze things deeply, but jumping straight to quick solutions just wastes time and money on initiatives that don't actually prevent future occurrences.
And that brings us to our primary tool to solve this whole dilemma, the Ishikawa diagram, though you've probably heard it called the fishbone diagram. It was named after its creator, Kaoru Ishikawa, and obviously gets its nickname from its literal resemblance to a fish skeleton. This tool is just incredible because it takes the absolute chaos of a brainstorming session and forces it into a single, highly organized visual. It perfectly captures stakeholder ideas and lays out multiple causes for a single problem, all on one page.
Moving on to section 2, anatomy of the fishbone. Let's take a look at the literal skeleton of this methodology.
Just look at how incredibly logical this structure is. You've got the main spine running straight down the middle, pointing to the head of the fish on the far right, and that's where your specific problem statement goes. Then, branching off that spine, you have the diagonal bones. These represent the major categories of potential causes. You'll usually see standard categories like equipment and supplies, environmental factors, rules and policies, and of course staff or people. It's like taking a giant puzzle and instantly sorting all the pieces into neat little piles.
Which brings us to section 3, building your diagram. Let's do a practical step-by-step walkthrough of how to create one of these from scratch. Okay, so there are 5 really clear steps to this methodology. Step 1, you have to define a very specific problem statement. And hey, quick warning here, do not define the problem as a lack of a solution. Step 2, draw out your spine and those major categories we just looked at. Step 3 is brainstorming causes. And this is absolutely crucial. You literally must include the people who are actually doing the work, not just upper management. Step 4, you add sub-branches to those causes. And finally, step 5, you analyze all of this to identify the true root causes.
Let's actually ground this theory in reality with a real-world healthcare example. Imagine this incident report. A resident fell and was injured during a transfer from her wheelchair to the toilet while being assisted by an aide. Now, if we look at the background facts, the resident's care plan actually required a 2-person transfer or 1 staff member using a mechanical lift, but the aide was alone and didn't use the lift. On the surface, it's so incredibly easy to just point the finger and blame the aide, right? I mean, it seems obvious.
But watch what happens when we translate this incident onto the fishbone framework. We start digging deeper. Under equipment, we find out the lift battery wasn't charged, and actually, the spare was dead too. Then under rules and policies, it turns out there was 0 process in place to ensure a battery was always charging. And under staff, the aide didn't even know the resident was a 2-person transfer because the care card was completely outdated. So the true root causes weren't just a careless employee at all, they were massive system failures. An uncharged spare battery, and a totally broken internal communication process. See that? We just moved from blaming a person to fixing a system. It's a real game changer.
Now, for section 4, the 5 whys technique. This is the motor that actually powers the diagram.
The 5 whys technique acts as the absolute engine for this whole process. You don't just write down a cause and call it a day. No, for every single idea thrown out there, you have to ask, why does this happen? This acts like a drill, pushing past those superficial layers and generating deeper and deeper levels of subcauses that branch off the main bones. And you just keep asking why repeatedly.
Sometimes it takes less than 5 times, sometimes way more. You keep going until the answer is no longer actionable, and that is when you know you've hit the foundational issue.
Let's move to Section 5, avoiding common RCA mistakes. Because let me tell you, it is incredibly easy to derail this effort if you aren't careful.
In fact, let me ask you a question. Think about your own company. When you brainstorm problems, how often do people say the root cause is a lack of funding or a lack of training? It's the ultimate corporate get-out-of-jail-free card, right? Oh, we just need more budget. Well, buckle up, because we're about to challenge some assumptions here.
So here are the 5 most common traps people fall into. Number 1 is starting with a poorly defined problem statement. But you really need to watch out for number 2, a lack of root cause validation. Remember, your brainstorming is just a hypothesis. You actually have to validate it with data so you aren't just treating opinions as facts. Number 3 is reverting back to the beginning of the 5 whys instead of actually sticking with those deep root causes you just worked so hard to find. Then there's number 4, and this is a massive one, naming a lack of training or money as a cause. The hard truth is, a lack of funding or leadership support are actually solutions you're asking for, not root causes. The real causes are buried deeper in your operations. And finally, number 5, assuming a problem has a single root cause. As we saw in our healthcare example, almost all significant problems are a messy combination of multiple system failures.
All right, final stretch, Section 6, Fishbone versus Pareto chart.
If you've spent any time at all in quality management, you've definitely heard of both of these heavy hitters. But when exactly do you use which? Well, it really comes down to prioritization versus depth. A Pareto chart is based on the 80-20 rule, right? You use it when you want to measure the frequency of problems. It gives you a great high-level overview so you know which issue is happening the most often, allowing you to prioritize where you put your effort. But the Fishbone diagram, that is for in-depth analysis. You pull that out when you need to uncover granular, complex details about a multi-layered workflow and truly diagnose the underlying disease.
So, we've covered the structure, the methodology, the real-world application, and the common traps to avoid. You literally now have the ultimate diagnostic tool right at your disposal. So my final question to you is this. What recurring workplace monster, that incredibly frustrating problem that keeps popping back up every single week, are you going to finally conquer by grabbing a whiteboard and building your next Fishbone diagram? Get out there and start curing the disease instead of just treating the symptoms. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep learning.